They went to Europe, leaving him in the hospital, so he sold the house and... The last thing Richard Hale saw before the automatic doors slid shut was his wife's back. Elaine didn't turn around. She adjusted her scarf, silk, blue, expensive, and kept walking, her heels clicking in a hurry that had nothing to do with fear or sadness. Their son, Marcus, followed a step behind her, already tapping on his phone, already somewhere else. The nurse stood beside Richard's bed, clipboard tucked under her arm, pretending not to notice the way his hand hovered weakly in the air, as if he might still stop them. "Europe will help us reset," Elaine had said 5 minutes earlier, her voice calm and reasonable. "You'll be fine here. The doctors said it's stable." Stable. That word echoed now as the doors sealed with a soft hiss. Richard lay there, the smell of antiseptic heavy in his lungs, a dull ache pressing against his ribs where his heart had betrayed him without warning. 72 years old, married for 46, a house paid off down to the last brick, a lifetime of early mornings, late nights, sacrifices made quietly and without applause. And now alone. He stared at the ceiling, tracing cracks shaped like countries he would never visit, and wondered when exactly love had learned to travel light. The heart attack had been sudden but not dramatic, no clutching, no collapse, just a sharp pain while trimming the hedges, a dizziness that sent the world tilting sideways. Elaine had called the ambulance with impressive efficiency. Marcus had arrived 20 minutes later, annoyed that he'd had to leave work early. They sat by Richard's bed that first night, nodding solemnly as the doctor explained medications, recovery time, the importance of reduced stress. 6 weeks at least, the doctor said. No heavy lifting, he'll need help at home. Elaine smiled, of course. Then she glanced at her watch. The trip had already been booked, 3 weeks across France and Italy. Refunds would be complicated, hotels expensive, and after all, Richard wasn't dying. "We deserve this," Elaine said later when they thought he was asleep. "I've put my life on hold enough." Richard heard every word. The hospital days blurred together, morning vitals, lukewarm meals, the shuffle of nurses changing shifts. Visitors came and went for other patients, balloons, flowers, laughter. Richard's bedside table held only his phone and a folded discharge pamphlet. Elaine called once from Paris. "You sound tired," she said. "Are they taking good care of you?" "Yes," Richard replied. "Good, Marcus says hi. The food here is incredible, you'd love it." He doubted that. After that, the calls stopped. On the 5th night, a young nurse named Clara adjusted his IV and smiled gently. "No visitors tonight?" she asked. Richard shook his head. "My family's traveling." Clara paused. "I'm sorry." He shrugged, the motion small and careful. They waited a long time for it. She hesitated, then said, "Sometimes people wait too long for the wrong things." That sentence stayed with him. Richard had always been the steady one. He worked 40 years at the same manufacturing plant, rising slowly, reliably. He coached Marcus's baseball team, fixed leaky faucets, paid bills on time. When Elaine wanted the kitchen remodeled, he worked overtime. When Marcus wanted a better school, Richard commuted farther. He never complained. He believed that if you showed up long enough, people would eventually show up for you. Lying alone in that hospital bed, he realized how flawed that belief had been. Discharge came quietly. Elaine wasn't there to drive him home. She sent a car. The house greeted him with silence, the kind that presses against your ears until you notice your own breathing. Dust sat undisturbed on the hallway table. The fridge hummed emptily. On the kitchen counter lay a note, written in Elaine's neat cursive. "Back in 2 weeks, soup in the freezer, don't forget your meds." "No, I missed you." "No, I'm glad you're home." Richard folded the note carefully and placed it in the drawer with old warranties and expired coupons. That night he slept in the guest room, The master bed felt too wide. The first letter came a week later. It was from the bank. We are pleased to inform you of your property's current market valuation. Richard read it twice. The number surprised him. The neighborhood had changed. Young families wanted space. Prices had climbed quietly, just like everything else while he wasn't looking. An idea stirred, not impulsive but clear. For the first time in decades, Richard didn't ask what his family would think. He asked what he wanted. The realtor, a woman named Denise, raised her eyebrows when he told her. "Are you sure?" she asked gently. "It's a big decision." Richard nodded. "I've spent my life maintaining things for other people. I'm done maintaining illusions." They listed the house that week. Elaine called from Venice, furious. "You sold the house," she demanded, "without telling me." "I told you where the papers were," Richard said calmly. "You just never looked." "You can't do this." "I already did." Marcus called next, his voice sharp with accusation. "Where are we supposed to live?" Richard smiled faintly. "You're an adult, Marcus. I assumed you had a plan." There was silence on the other end. Then a click. The house sold in 11 days. Richard packed slowly, deliberately. He donated furniture he'd never liked, threw out boxes labeled MISC, that held nothing but guilt. He kept only what mattered: photos, books, the old watch his father had given him. On moving day, Clara, the nurse, showed up. "You don't have to do this alone," she said, taking a box from his hands. "I'm not," Richard replied. "I'm finally doing it for myself." He moved into a small apartment near the coast. Nothing fancy, just enough space, enough light. The ocean was visible from the balcony if you leaned slightly left. It was perfect. Elaine returned from Europe to an empty driveway. Her messages grew more frantic. "We need to talk. You're being unreasonable. This isn't like you." She showed up at his new place a week later, eyes red, voice trembling. "You humiliated me," she said. "Do you know what people are saying?" Richard looked at her, really looked. For the first time, he didn't feel responsible for her disappointment. "I nearly died," he said softly, "and you left." Elaine opened her mouth, then closed it. "I spent decades choosing us," Richard continued. "When it mattered most, you chose a vacation. Marcus didn't come." Months passed. Richard's health improved. He walked the beach every morning, volunteered at the community center, teaching woodworking to kids whose parents worked too much. He laughed more quietly, genuinely. He used part of the money to set up a small scholarship at the local trade school, in his father's name. One evening, Clara joined him for dinner. They talked about books, about music, about the strange courage it takes to start over when you're supposed to be done starting. "You're not bitter," she observed. "No," Richard said, "I'm free." A year later, a letter arrived. From Elaine. "I didn't understand what I lost until it was gone," it read. "If there's any chance." Richard folded it carefully. He didn't reply. Some doors don't need to be slammed. They close on their own when you finally stop holding them open. On his 74th birthday, Richard stood on his balcony, watching the sun sink into the water. The horizon burned gold, then softened into blue. He thought of the man he'd been in that hospital bed, waiting, hopping, afraid to inconvenience anyone with his pain. He wished he could tell him something. He smiled. Life isn't taken from you all at once. Sometimes it's quietly abandoned. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is sell the house and buy back your life. Moral: love that only stays when it's convenient is not love, it's comfort. Never sacrifice your dignity, health, or self-worth for people who walk away when you need them most. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. Sometimes it's survival.